What go down, YouTube? What it is? What's happening? It's KJ back again with another reaction. Fuck you talking about? I think that might be my new shit, but you know what I'm saying? But y'all just heard that's dropping soon too. Y'all let me know if y'all want that. It's still dropping whether y'all want it or not. I'm just letting you know. But shit, without further ado, we got how one man took on the cartel by itself and won for today's video. And without further ado, man, we finna get right into it. I hope everybody doing good out there, man. And stay out the way of these folks.
It started with a call from Mexico and a ride nobody wanted to take. An Alabama boss caught between cartel threats and secrets back home stood at a crossroads with his life on the line. From Mexico and a ride nobody wanted to take. An Alabama boss caught between cartel threats and secrets back home stood at a crossroads with his life on the line. Nobody on the block saw what was coming next or who would turn on who. Some moves save you, some moves end it all. But who really came out on top? When most folks picture Alabama, they see slow days, tight neighborhoods, and the kind of hospitality that makes outsiders drop their guard. But behind the Sunday cookouts and church hats, there's a whole other world moving in silence. A world where everybody knows who's got weight and everybody's trying to stack their paper without making too much noise. In the mid-'80s, and even more by the early 2000s, Alabama's highways became one of the busiest pipelines for the drug game, with Atlanta just 2 hours away serving as the main plug for anything you could name. Cocaine, heroin, meth. By the time the cartels really planted their flag, even the smallest towns had crews moving work for Mexican connects. Birmingham wasn't some sleepy city. By 2010, violence was up, overdoses climbing, and bodies dropping behind turf beefs. All that and barely anybody outside noticed. For the people hustling in Bessemer or making moves in Birmingham's west side, the dream was simple.
I got y'all some tree, man. Sparkle with me, man.
Get it, keep it, and don't get.
Every time y'all come, this for the grown folks, they indulge. Every time y'all come one of my videos, man, have one of these with me. Cause I'm gonna have me one or two. So you know what I'm saying? You might as well, it's an open invite.
Caught.
Some did it loud. Shit, though. None of that shit on the screen. We don't do none of that shit though. You do that type of shit, stay far away from me. You know what I'm saying? I don't judge. We listen. We ain't judging. But nah, it's not my cup of tea. Or spoon of, yeah.
Some did it low key, but either way, the cartel's product was in the mix and the stakes were nothing light. While most of the South was talking college football or barbecue, the folks in the shadows were playing for keeps. That's the real Alabama underneath the fried chicken and rolled tide banners. The Alabama that's about to shape our story. Rolando Antoine Williamson, known on the street as Bald Head, grew up in Bessemer, a blue-collar suburb southwest of Birmingham, where people worked hard, looked out for their own, and respected those who knew how to hustle. Bessemer wasn't just factories and football games. It had a reputation, even back then, as a place where folks played by their own rules. If you wanted to make real money, you had to move smart, and it didn't hurt to know the right people. For a young bald head, the real education didn't come from any classroom. He saw the local hustlers slide through in Cadillacs, rocking gold chains and throwing parties that had the block talking for days.
No chain on
in
that
neighborhoods where steady jobs were few and options were thin, it was easy to see who had juice and who just talked a good game. By the time he hit his early 20s, Baldhead already understood the code of the street. Keep your mouth shut, watch who you trust, and always stay 2 steps ahead. In May 2007, things took a turn. A party in Bessemer went sideways and a man wound up dead. Rolando caught a murder charge at just 22 years old and ended up sitting in jail for about a month. The case never made it to trial. Maybe self-defense, maybe witness drama, maybe just luck, but on the street, it sent a different message. Baldhead was no rookie, and now his name carried a little more weight. He walked free, but whatever innocence was left burned off that summer. After the case dropped, Rolando went right back to what he knew. He wasn't trying to play it safe or go straight. Instead, he learned that in Bessemer, reputation was everything. Every move mattered, every word got around, and every handshake could set you up or take you out. He started putting his crew together, learning the business on the corners, and listening to the old heads who'd seen it all before. What nobody knew yet was how far he'd go, or how close the cartel already was to the Alabama scene. Back in the early 2000s, the drug game in Birmingham wasn't run by small timers or weekend hustlers. It was ruled by a handful of heavy hitters, and at the top of the food chain stood Billy Champ Williams Jr., a man whose legend stretched way beyond city limits. Williams wasn't just a street dealer, he was a high-rolling kingpin with a taste for luxury, known for running Birmingham's west side with an iron grip. If you were moving weight in the city back then, you either worked for Champ or you kept your head down and hoped to stay out of his way, because everybody knew Champ didn't play about his business. He built his network with an old school style that mixed fear, loyalty, and a show-off streak. People still talk about the day a SWAT team and the FBI caught him in his luxury downtown condo in nothing but his underwear, stacks of cash flying out the bathroom window as he tried to dump the evidence. That went down in May 2013, right in the heart of Birmingham. And by the time the agents finished sweeping the scene, they grabbed over $166,000 in cash, $177,000 in jewelry, and keys to high-end rides like a Corvette ZR1, plus a few more luxury whips. For years, Champ was untouchable, the kind of guy who could lock down a whole city block and still have time to intimidate witnesses from inside a courtroom. In July 2014, Williams pled guilty to serious federal drug and money laundering charges, catching nearly 22 years in prison. But even behind bars, he still had the streets on edge. When he was led into a court hearing, just a cold stare was enough to make 3 co-defendants fold and plead out without a single word. That's how deep his influence ran. When the feds finally took Champ out of the picture, the whole city felt the aftershocks. Birmingham's drug market was suddenly wide open, and with no clear heir in sight, the hustlers who'd been waiting on the sidelines started making their moves. The authorities first thought one of Champ's relatives would step up and keep the show running, but that didn't last. The family member tried to push heroin to an undercover and got picked up almost immediately. All of a sudden, the West Side Network, the kind of operation that had once been airtight, was left with nobody steering the ship. In the streets, that's the type of power vacuum that either gets filled by somebody bold or gets torn up by chaos. For a while, everybody kept their head down, waiting to see who would step up and grab the crown. While most people in Birmingham were either hustling to stay afloat or laying low to dodge the heat, Rolando saw the open lane and didn't hesitate or lay the crown.
Crazy
While most people,
look at these Jamaican flag on them bitches. Them bitches is cold. I'm not gonna lie, that boy, that's different. Where they? Oh, these not. Where's he getting these pictures from, bro? It's not America.
In Birmingham were either hustling to stay afloat or laying low to dodge the heat. Rolando saw the open lane and didn't hesitate. He'd been grinding in the background for a minute, moving smaller weight, keeping a low profile, but he understood something the others didn't. Connections matter more than muscle. Before the takedown, Baldhead was one of Champ Williams' many customers. His number even showed up in Champ's seized phone logs. But Baldhead wasn't content just to be another middleman. Once Champ got snatched up and the would-be successors got jammed, Baldhead started building his own brand, tapping into direct plugs, both out of state and across the border. By around 2013, Williamson made the kind of moves that changed the game, cutting out middlemen and working straight with Mexican suppliers, especially a connect named Mean in Monterrey, Mexico, who was tied to the Gulf Cartel. With Mean backing his supply, Baldhead started bringing in major shipments of cocaine, heroin, meth, and marijuana, sending his own people out on the highways to collect loads, stash product in houses scattered all over Birmingham and Bessemer, and keep the work moving from Atlanta to the smallest Alabama town. More important than the money or the muscle was the way Baldhead put his team together. He built a tight crew that ran like a business, stash house managers, trusted drivers, and even a respected youth football coach who, by day, told kids to stay off the block, but by night was running kilos for the operation.
Damn.
Baldhead kept a small circle, but made sure everybody played their part. He never relied just on street soldiers. He made room for people who could blend in and move smart, which helped the operation stay
This dude pictures is crazy, bro. Them shit's throwing me off. Cause
radar for years.
I know that's not the
There
pictures.
were always guns in the mix and rules about loyalty. Betrayal meant everything stopped, and people who got sloppy didn't last long. As Baldhead's crew locked down the city, his operation became one of the most well-oiled in Alabama, blending street instincts with business smarts. He didn't just rely on the same old tactics. He was constantly adapting, using stash houses spread out in Birmingham, Bessemer, and the surrounding areas, so law enforcement never knew where the real action was going down. Every role mattered. One guy would pick up shipments straight out of Atlanta, another would move the work across county lines. And at every step, Baldhead made sure the product kept moving and the cash kept flowing back up the chain. If you were anywhere near the game in West Birmingham, by 2015, you felt the ripple effects. Overdoses on heroin and fentanyl started climbing. Turf beefs turned deadlier, and the streets were talking about how Baldhead's crew was always one step ahead. But this wasn't just some corner hustle, it was a real business. Baldhead understood loyalty and paranoia both mattered. He kept a small circle, made people earn trust, and wasn't shy about cutting folks off if they started acting suspect. Everybody knew that if you started talking too much, making wild moves, or letting outsiders into your business, you wouldn't last. To keep the feds off his back, Baldhead brought in community figures who didn't fit the usual profile, like that youth football coach who ran the field by day and the highway at night, using their clean image as cover, which made the whole operation harder to pin down. Guns were always close, but more as insurance than show and tell, and Baldhead made sure the real heat stayed tucked away unless it was absolutely necessary. He wasn't flashy on the block, but he still liked the finer things. Over time, he built up a collection of luxury rides, Cadillac Escalades, a Ford F-250 King Ranch, and that Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat that always got folks talking. Every so often, you'd catch him on Snapchat or Instagram with a pile of $100 bills, a gold and diamond raw pendant swinging around his neck, and a smile that said he was winning bigger than anybody else in Birmingham. But even that was calculated, enough flexing to keep his crew motivated, never enough to have the police at his door without warning. From 2013 up through the late 2010s, Baldhead's empire only grew. His people weren't just moving cocaine and weed anymore. By 2018, heroin, meth, and especially fentanyl were flooding the streets. Agents later said his operation alone supplied most of the West Side with hard drugs, fueling some of the worst waves of violence and addiction the area had seen in years. At the same time, Baldhead's crew started pulling in so much cash that the cartel took real notice. Mexican suppliers didn't just see him as another runner, but as a boss in his own right. That level of success, though, came with more heat from both the streets and out-of-town connects. For a while, the plan worked. The money flowed in, the crew kept expanding, and Baldhead became the power on the West Side. His influence grew so strong that by the late 2010s, even law enforcement was starting to realize just how deep his roots went in the Birmingham drug game. But underneath all that shine, pressure was building. The more he moved, the more he attracted the attention of both the feds and the Mexican suppliers watching their cut. And as Baldhead's name kept growing, so did the risks. He wasn't looking for trouble, but in the drug game, trouble always finds you first. And when the cartel wants to know if you're loyal, there's no safe way to play it. By the time 2018 rolled around, Baldhead was no longer just buying product. He was in business with some of the most powerful players out of Mexico. His main connect, known as Mean from Monterrey, wasn't just some runner.
Why is he blurring it out now? We already seen him. What's up, bro?
Or low-level contact. Meme was linked directly to the Gulf Cartel, a crew that had a rep for not playing games when it came to their money or their people. Baldhead had been moving so much product and pushing so much cash their way that the dynamic started to shift. Instead of treating him like just another distributor, the cartel began to look at him almost like a peer, someone who could actually be invited to the table, not just sent orders from the top. That's how the infamous invitation went down in the summer of 2019.
Damn.
Meme reached out and told Baldhead to come to Monterey, pull up for a motorcycle trip, kick it with the crew, and celebrate the partnership, a move that was supposed to be a sign of trust, but anybody who knows the cartel knows nothing is ever just a party. Some of Baldhead's closest people warned him straight up, they can do anything to you down there. Bro, you show up, you might not make it back. That wasn't just paranoia talking. One of his own couriers, a dude from Reynosa, had been kidnapped by cartel gunmen and ransomed for $20,000 not long before, forcing his pops to sell the family home to bring him back. Even his cousin had lost a shipment in Atlanta and nearly got his whole family hunted down in Mexico. The message was loud and clear. Once you get on the cartel's radar as a big fish, you're either in deeper than you think or you're about to get squeezed for every dollar you ever made.
Boy, them boys coming to
Baldhead
get
played
you,
it
huh?
smart. He told Meme he was busy, didn't make the trip, and by all accounts, that move probably saved his life. Behind the scenes, later intel confirmed the whole trip was a setup. They planned
Damn.
to kidnap Baldhead and hold him for a $100,000 ransom if he'd actually crossed the border. For a minute, it looked like Baldhead had outplayed the cartel at their own game, staying alive while other bosses
That's
with
crazy.
less sense had
They try to backdoor him. Do your homework on the back door. That shit crazy.
vanished without a trace. Even after dodging that bullet, Baldhead kept the business running. The Mexicans didn't cut.
Bro, that's what I'm saying, bro. Mexicans and black people, we really just the same, bro. I'm telling you, we be backdooring folks too. We backdoor, y'all backdoor, y'all got the backdoor in y'all too. I see it. It's clear as day. Y'all do this shit all the time too. Y'all been backdoor motherfuckers. I see y'all, bro. I see y'all.
Cut him off because he was still bringing in money. But the whole vibe shifted. While Baldhead thought he dodged the most dangerous bullet, he didn't see the next one coming because it wasn't fired from across the border, but from his own backyard. By late 2019, the feds had been putting together a serious task force, pulling in Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, the FBI's North Alabama Safe Streets crew, and whoever else had jurisdiction in Birmingham's Wild West. The investigation wasn't built on just hearsay.
Green
They
Glocks.
had wiretaps, surveillance,
That
undercover
battery
buys, and most importantly, people on the inside. That's where the real drama went down, because while Baldhead was stressing cartel traps, one of his own trusted couriers, the same guy who'd warned him about Monterey, flipped and started working with the feds. Nobody in the streets ever expects it to be their own people, but that's how most kingpins fall. The courier agreed to wear a wire, meeting with Baldhead face to face and letting the conversation roll. What Baldhead
That's damn near another backdoor. That shit crazy.
didn't know was that every word was getting handed straight to federal agents, including talk about his cousin who'd been plotting, the beef in the crew, and business with Mimi out in Mexico. On June 11, 2019, that wire recording caught Baldhead breaking down his entire operation for the courier, admitting who was really in charge, how the product moved, and why he didn't trust his cousin enough to let him handle anything major. That same meeting included talk about selling to high-rolling clients on the US 280 corridor, proof that the business wasn't just about the block, but about moving weight to the burbs, where folks had money to spend and didn't want trouble on their doorstep. While the recording was stacking up evidence, law enforcement kept gathering intel from every angle, cell
That's a
phone
crazy ass
pings,
mohawk.
law enforcement
And that bitch offset. Damn. Chocolate Dale. Fuck talking about.
kept gathering intel from every angle, cell phone pings, WhatsApp messages about deals, financial trails, and more. The feds started connecting dots across at least 18 different conspirators, but the only thing that truly cracked the case was the inside job. The more Baldhead's courier handed over, the more clear it became that this wasn't some street beef about respect. It was a federal case, and it was closing in fast. The paranoia Baldhead had for years was justified, just not in the way he expected. It wasn't Meme or the Gulf Cartel that would take him out. It was the same people he thought would never turn, quietly taking meetings and feeding every move to the other side.
Damn.
That's where the real downfall began. Not with a bang,
Everybody
but with a
backdooring
conversation in a car, a wire hidden in plain sight, and a kingpin who never saw the betrayal coming. By August 2019, Baldhead had become the one name on everybody's radar, from folks hustling in Birmingham to the agencies watching from the other side of the street. When the Safe Streets Task Force decided it was time to make their move, they didn't leave anything to chance. After 3 years of building a case, connecting dots from Bessemer to Monterey and back, they brought every tool they had: surveillance, informants, wiretaps, undercover buys, and stacks of evidence nobody in the city had seen before. On the morning of August 22nd, the team rolled out with a tight plan. No leaks, no warning, and definitely no room for Baldhead to slip away. The feds caught him slipping in the parking lot of a Publix grocery store in Homewood, a spot he probably figured was low-key enough to blend in, but upscale enough to not draw eyes. Agents moved in quick, boxed him in, and pulled him from behind the wheel of his 2016 Dodge Charger Hellcat. He tried to reach for something, but before he could make a move, they had him on the pavement, hands behind his back, 2 loaded handguns, extra magazines, and almost $14,000 in a bag. While Baldhead was still getting cuffed, other teams were already hitting his stash spots across the city.
Damn.
3 houses went down that morning. Inside, they
Beautiful.
found what you'd expect from a major player: over 366 grams of heroin and fentanyl, 109 grams of cocaine, more than half a kilo of meth, stacks of cash totaling over $97,000, and enough weed to keep half the West Side happy for months. The feds also picked up an arsenal of guns and more than 1,700 rounds of ammo, showing this wasn't just about getting money, it was about keeping everybody ready for whatever came their way. That bust didn't just cripple Baldhead's operation, it sent a ripple through every hustler in the city. The days of thinking nobody could touch the top spot were over. As the news spread, most of Baldhead's circle tried to stay out the way, but the task force had already mapped out the crew. In the weeks that followed, 14 other co-conspirators were picked up in coordinated raids, and by November, a sweeping 58-count indictment was handed down, charging 18 people in total with everything from conspiracy to distribute heroin, cocaine, meth, and weed to money laundering.
See, that's what happened to niggas, just be sitting in the trap all day. Y'all be trying to get y'all money and shit. I understand. I can't tell nobody what to do. But I know me personally, bro, I'm not finna be in no trap house. I'm especially not finna be sleeping there, staying overnight. Motherfucker there, eating there, shitting there. I'm not finna be doing none of that shit. But they could come in there anytime, and guess what? I mean, not guess what, and now what? Motherfucker got 18 motherfuckers charged with all this shit. You're not coming out unless you snitch, and even then, it's over with for you.
Charging 18 people in total with everything from conspiracy to distribute heroin, cocaine, meth, and weed to money laundering and firearm offenses. Every role in Baldhead's empire, from stash house managers to drivers to low-level street pushers, was wrapped up in the indictment. Some of his people didn't wait for trial. They took pleas and tried to cut their losses early, but Baldhead stayed solid, refusing to plead, betting on his reputation and the slim chance he could beat the case in court. At the top of the paperwork sat Rolando Antoine Williamson, aka Baldhead, now officially facing the Kingpin statute, a federal charge reserved for major players whose operations move like international cartels. The continuing criminal enterprise charge meant life with no parole if convicted, and the prosecutors made it clear.
How the fuck could you ever think you was finna beat that, bro? Come on now, that's crazy. Did you pay somebody?
That this
told you
time
good?
there was no way to finesse the outcome. Law enforcement wasn't shy about the impact either. U.S. Attorney Prem Escalona said the takedown of Baldhead's crew was the kind of blow that will spend the rest of his life in prison, and FBI agents called it a decisive blow to the trafficking networks that had flooded Birmingham with dope for years. Every press conference, every news headline, and every street rumor hammered the same point. The run was over, and there was a new level of fear in the game now. Nobody was untouchable anymore. As the dust settled and Baldhead's mugshots started making the rounds, folks on the block couldn't help but think about how fast the tables turned. Just months before, Baldhead had dodged a cartel setup and kept his operation running smooth, outsmarting players who'd buried plenty before him. But in the end, it wasn't the cartel that did him in. It was the people closest to him, the feds, watching patiently, and the very city he thought he'd figured out. When April 2022 came around, Baldhead's day in court finally arrived, and the trial that unfolded in Birmingham's federal courthouse wasn't just another headline. It was the closing chapter for one of the city's biggest drug empires. The prosecution brought a mountain of evidence to the table, built from years of surveillance, informant work, and every slip-up Baldhead's crew made along the way. There were cell phone and WhatsApp messages lining up drug deals, photos and videos of Baldhead posing with stacks of cash and custom bling, and most damning, the secret audio recording from June 2019, where Baldhead broke down his whole operation in his own words. The jury heard it all, talk about cutting off his cousin, beef over the product, conversations about selling to high-end clients on US 280, and confirmation that his main connect was Meme from Monterey. Every story, every flex, every joke from those taped meetings became evidence, turning street stories into a federal case. In court, prosecutors painted Baldhead as not just a drug dealer, but as the kingpin responsible for putting hundreds of kilos of cocaine, more than 24 kilos of heroin, 10 kilos of meth, and over 20,000 pounds of marijuana on the streets between 2013 and 2019. They even brought up how the fentanyl found in his stash alone, just 150 grams, could have killed thousands, with one officer telling the jury lives were literally on the line with every batch he moved. Former FBI agent Wayne Gerhardt, who led the case, called it one of the top investigations of his 23-year career, laying out how Baldhead's crew supplied the West Side with enough poison to keep law enforcement scrambling for years. The prosecution also made a point of showing the $36 million in drug proceeds they tracked back to Baldhead's empire, adding a money judgment to the case and seizing assets, 2 luxury vehicles, over $100,000 in cash, more than $45,000 in jewelry, and every gun and bullet they found on his turf. Baldhead's defense tried to show another side of the man behind the nickname. Family and friends sent in letters describing him as a loyal father, a generous friend, and a community member who'd used his money to help out people in need. Some painted a picture of a guy who, despite being deep in the game, never forgot where he came from and did his best to look out for his people. But Judge Anne Marie C. Axon wasn't buying it. She made it clear that no amount of charity could wipe away the damage done by the drugs he sold. In her words, "My concern is that you have left these young men and women with the impression that it's okay to sell drugs so long as you're generous with your proceeds." She reminded everyone in the courtroom that the same money that bought cars and jewelry also paid for pain, overdoses, and funerals all across Birmingham. The verdict was heavy. On April 18, 2022, the jury found Baldhead guilty on every count, leading a criminal enterprise, multiple counts of trafficking, weapons charges, conspiracy, and using phones in furtherance of the business. Judge Axon sentenced him to life in federal prison, tacking on another 10 years and entering a $36 million judgment against him. The whole crew fell in line after.
10 years.
Some got 14 years, some 25, others 40, depending on their role. But for Baldhead, it was a wrap. The man who once ran the block, dodged the cartel, and beat the odds on more than one occasion, was now locked up for life, his empire seized, his crew scattered, and his legend sealed as both a cautionary tale and a marker for how far things can go when you're chasing that top spot. After the sentencing, law enforcement put out statements talking about saving lives, sending messages, and making the city safer. The folks on the street talked about the vacuum left behind, how every time a kingpin goes down, somebody's waiting to step up, and the cycle just keeps spinning. When the doors closed on Baldhead, the streets felt the shift, his old territory up for grabs, but the pain and fallout stayed behind. For all his moves, outsmarting the cartel and surviving traps, it was the people closest to him and the long reach of the law that finished the story. In the end, Baldhead won the battle that could have cost him his life, but lost everything else chasing power and respect. That's the game. You might dodge one bullet, but you never see the last one coming. Sometimes, making it out alive isn't the win you think it is. Appreciate you watching. If you liked it, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe for more.
Shit. Alright, chat. I don't know how they say he took the cartel down, but look like they took him down. They didn't say nothing about the cartel being caught, but hey, we learned some lessons, some valuable lessons and key points in this video, right? We learned something. But shit, other than that, man, I'm out. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video. Y'all let me know what y'all want me to react to next.